This is Immutable Opinion. I'm Asher Westropp-Evans, inviting you to prove me wrong. Okay, so today we're talking Microstrategy. Now, in case you missed all the recent hype, here's a catch-up on some of the essential details of this story. So Microstrategy CEO Michael Saylor took a spin on Anthony Pompliano's Pomp podcast. The old-school executive and entrepreneur came out strong about MicroStrategy's recent purchases of Bitcoin, totaling $425 million worth of that sweet, sweet digital gold. Now, this is the first publicly traded company to convert a significant amount of their balance sheet to Bitcoin, or really any cryptocurrency for that matter. Now, Saylor's argument boiled down to the idea that while CPI inflation seems to have utterly stagnated, yeah, that price of a YouTube premium video still remains the same. Assets, those things that aren't mass-produced intangible nonsense, are appreciating at historic rates. That's where this real inflation is killing us. In college prices, house prices, stock and bond prices, you know, the scarce things that actually matter in life for anyone hoping to be a part of the global economy. Now, hearing these arguments, the community responded with the usual frantic excitement. This is it. The moment we've all been waiting for. Institutional investment has arrived and Bitcoin is set to go to the moon, to Mars, and even beyond. Now, I'm not trying to downplay this announcement, and it is certainly cause for serious excitement. Saylor literally hit all the major talking points the industry wanted to hear, with quotes like cash is trash, asymmetric payoff, and the institutions dampen volatility. And as the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company, this is welcome news to those stalwarts that have been wandering the deserts for a number of years now. The question then becomes, when does all that sweet institutional money start rolling in? Well, according to a very detailed and specific timeline put out by Saylor, 6 months to a year for significant institutional players to enter the market. Okay, so we're done here? Well, no, because those institutions that Saylor mentioned need to be paying attention to the announcement, be prepared to follow MicroStrategy's lead, a company that has spearheaded tech and innovation for 22 years. And while the prospect sounds appealing, there still seem to be a couple of 8 or 9-figure holes in this overarching plan. Look, with the 3,500 publicly traded companies, Saylor estimates approximately $5 trillion exist in these public company treasuries. As he puts it, they have a fiduciary responsibility not to lose money, and Bitcoin looks like a potential answer to this cry. It all sounds like a very compelling argument. But, and the big but is, that's assuming conditions remain favorable. At the time of recording, US equities have seen a 4-day sell-off. Apple is in a 20% bear market decline, and all 3 major averages have suffered 3 straight weeks of losses. The Dow and S&P 500 have fallen 4.5% and 6.3% respectively this month, while the Nasdaq has dropped a whopping 8.4% as investors dumped those high-flying tech giants. And it assumes that those publicly traded companies, which include some absolute dinosaurs, are willing to invest the time, energy, and know-how into this industry. And yeah, I hear you saying they don't all need to invest. And you know, this dip in the markets comes on the back of a huge bull run out of the coronavirus falls. I mean, really, for companies not to be investing right now with all the liquidity in the market would be insanity. Why wouldn't they get even a little bit into Bitcoin? If even 1% of those players come on board, the upside could be huge. And you know what? That is true. But while getting 1% may sound small, it is still a massive undertaking. Getting these behemoth public companies to do anything is an undertaking. Getting them to run an ad campaign can be a year-long affair. Getting them to drop a cool billion into a relatively untested asset like Bitcoin is another thing entirely. Look, these situations rely on network effects. And Michael Saylor's move with MicroStrategy into this network is a huge first step. It is so powerful for those institutions that have been sitting on the sidelines, wondering what to do with this extra liquidity, and maybe now they'll think about this move. But man, will they think slowly, and they will think carefully, and they will move with great caution and aplomb. Now, let's talk about how these steps work out, because from first steps you need to get to seconds, and Saylor went out of his way to mention Jack Dorsey during the podcast. Now, the founder and CEO of Twitter and Square Inc. has a one-word Twitter bio. You know what that is? #Bitcoin. Yet, Saylor quite rightly raises the question, why won't Jack Dorsey buy, $500 million to $1 billion worth of Bitcoin for either of the companies he heads? I mean, surely there's some liquid assets lying around that he could just pick up a bit of Bitcoin with to put his money where his mouth is and put so much into this industry he seems to so believe in. But, let's try for Dorsey. Let's try and get him to do that. But let's also remember that he is but one individual, an incredibly powerful, connected, inspired, inspirational individual. But in his particular case, he is, for example, beholden to Elliott Management, the activist investor fund that is nipping at Dorsey's heel and likely won't take too kindly to such moves. They're on the board of directors and they are reviewing him constantly to check for slip-ups, failures, or movements of any kinds that could see them boot him from his CEO position. Individuals may like Bitcoin, but companies are not monoliths. They have to work within the incredibly structured systems that they exist in, and Bitcoin may just not be ready for that. I believe it will happen one day. I believe it will happen inevitably, but let's not get overexcited when one CEO takes the plunge. It is a great move, but across the scope of history, we still have a hell of a long way to go. But you know what? Prove me wrong. I'm Asher Westropp-Evans, and this is Immutable Opinion.